The morale continues, Umakshe, Voksiv. The Gemara brought us that they were saying the Talmidim asked back to the Rebbeim, Ashrei Adam Mefachid Tamid. The Torah says that you should be afraid, and they answered the Yankele with the Torah. They answered, yeah, you know why you should be afraid when it comes to the Torah. What does that mean? Says the Maral. This has an incredible, beautiful reasoning behind it. When something belongs to you, when it belongs to a person, unless you sinned, unless you caused, you created a chain of events, a cause and effect, you sinned in some way, then why would you lose that thing, right? If it belongs to you, right? You earned something, now you own it. Unless you're going to sin, unless you're going to create a cause and effect, a chain of events, why would you lose it? There's no reason for you to be afraid that you might lose it. You know, you're not born in this world to go have bad things happen to you. Unless you sinned, and therefore you deserve it. Like you said, mentioned earlier, that a person who sins brings himself into a matzah of being in a weaker state, and therefore he's closer to being broken. And that's why the Gemara told him, the guy, and by Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi told him, you must be a sinner, that's why you're afraid. However, says the Maral, Torah is completely different. Why? By the Torah, a person is always considered broken, meaning say in a weaker state. Why? As the Gemara says in that what? It's hard to buy into them just like gold, but however, to lose them, for them to become broken, that's as easy as a fragile glass cup. Why, says the Maral, Vatam be'aynu beprokim, ki koshal adam liknes dava she'ein shayich el adam. How can you buy into, how can you earn and own something that is not possible to belong to a human being? Ki Torah Hashem. The Torah does not belong to us, the Torah is from Hashem. Loi Torah Adam ad sheyiknes a Torah, until you buy into the Torah. Right? The Mishnah gives us 48 things how a person should buy into the Torah. Vazi Torah Adam. But however, it is very hard to buy into that. So when something is so unnatural to own and to earn, it makes sense to say Asher Adam Mefachid Tamid. You should always be fearful of losing the Torah because you don't own it. Again, if you own something and it belongs to you, then there's no reason for you to be afraid unless you sinned, and therefore you might deserve losing it. But if you never owned it in the first place, it's Torah Hashem, then of course, Asher Adam Mefachid Tamid, Ki Afal Gav Shekana Torah, even if a person does buy into the Torah, it's not that you really own it at this point. There's no way that the simple brain of a human being can completely comprehend and earn and therefore deserve to say that owns the Torah. Then of course the pasuk tells us Asher Adam Mefachid Tamid. At that stage, a person should always be afraid and fearful that it loses Torah. That is true, because in that case a person is considered a broken kli, a weakened kli, that's easy to break completely and easy to lose. However, by everything else there is no room to be afraid, unless of course a person sinned. But otherwise, why would you lose something that you own and something that you earned?